All right, so you've been seeing me trot up and down the stage, introducing our panels. But I actually get to moderate one for once. If you missed my introduction earlier, I'm Owen Thomas. I'm the editor-in-chief of ReadWrite. We're a 10-year-old site covering technology. I have recently launched a series called ReadWrite Body, which is something of an exploration of the space, wearables, other fitness gadgets, apps, and services that help you maintain or increase your level of fitness. So I'm very pleased to be moderating this coming panel, which I gave the title, "You're Just a Big Sack of Water and Data." A Wi-Fi engineer once told me that human beings are essentially just sacks of water as far as networks are concerned. We actually block signal. So like, in this room, the Wi-Fi signal is bouncing off of you. In the wearables world, those sacks of water become containers, vessels of data. And on our coming panel, we are going to be talking to folks who are helping capture that data. And I find that so interesting. The thing I'm going to challenge them on is, what do you do with the data once you capture it? The universal thing I've seen in the gadgets like this Sync Burn fitness tracker and other apps and services I've used is that they don't really tell you what to do next. They may tell you, you've done a certain number of steps. Okay, is that good or is that bad? Do I need to do more? Maybe less. Should I do something differently? This is my heart rate right now. Let's see, right now, checking my heart rate. Let's see, 64, I'm very calm. But what do I do with that information? So to help us solve these questions, I believe we've got our panelists mic'd up. We have Casper de Clercq of Norwest Venture Partners. We have Sonny Vu from Misfit Wearables. And we've got Marco Della Torre of Basis. All right, coming up, guys. Welcome. All right. I guess we'll start by just hearing a bit about your involvement in kind of the digital health space and kind of what brought you here. So,
Great.
Casper, you've been involved with medical devices, which is that's long before we called them like fitness trackers, what have you. Venture capitalists have been investing in this category.
Yep. So my background's just more hard science. So I look at a lot of what's happening in the consumer world. I'm like, wow, the standard's a lot lower than what we're used to with the FDA. And secondly, you just realize how much noise is in the system when you're trying to measure things accurately. I come from a background of 20 years of medical device investing. Most recently, we invested, or several years ago, we invested in Basis. And then about almost 12 months, a little bit more than 12 months ago, in Sonny's company, Misfit. And we also invested recently in a company called iRhythm, which is a 2-lead ECG patch, which is competing directly with Holter monitors. And the whole premise is increased convenience and ease of use, and ergonomics will improve compliance and will drive market share. So that's it.
Right on. And Sonny, can you show everyone your device?
Yeah, sure. I'm wearing it right now. It's called the Shine. And so you just tap it and it lights up, tells you how well you're doing for the day. Personal progress bar, basically. And we launched it on our favorite crowdfunding platform, Indiegogo, and it's been history since then.
Right on. And you may remember earlier today we had Kate from Indiegogo, Kate Drain.
That's right, yeah.
So it just shows how tight and close this community is.
Yeah, we're big fans. They actually helped us a lot. So.
And Marco, tell us a bit about Basis, and I understand you also might have something new to tell the audience?
Yeah, I have a little bit of news.
Right on, please share.
So Basis is the most advanced wearable tracker for health. We make devices that look a lot like this. This is the Basis B1. It has 5 biosensors inside it, so it measures heartbeats, skin temperature, ambient temperature, perspiration, and movement. So we're really getting past just the limitations of tracking sort of steps and simple motion-based activities and into physiological monitoring for everyone. So God bless you, we're standing up on stage waiting for 15 seconds for your heart rate to sync. I can tell you right now mine's 68. So having that information right at your fingertips counts for a lot.
That was a great demo of how old and busted the technology I'm using is.
We'll fix that for you.
Yeah.
And that's been really successful for us. We have a really great user base, been very supportive. It's been hugely popular. People are really looking for more than what's been possible before. And so we've been sold out since we launched, since 35 minutes after we launched. So much interest from the public. Hello. So today we made an announcement. Hello. So today we made an announcement that we're reopening our store.
Looks like it's just a little too
Hello. Today we made an announcement that we're reopening our store next Tuesday publicly. And we're actually giving away a band every day between now and then through a social media campaign. So check out @mybasis and you'll win a Basis band if you make a good submission one of those days.
Excellent. Very cool.
And we might win a new microphone. All right. I think...
Let's see if we can get someone to help with that.
So in reality, just getting back to sort of your original question about how we got here, an engineer by background, biomedical engineer originally in medical devices. A bit frustrated by the regulatory pathways and the cost of how long it took to get products to market. I started out working in the bionic eye, and those things are really inspirational, but take decades to get to market. And so I wanted to do something that was still possible in terms of global impact, but then quicker in terms of iterating features for users. So with Basis, we're able to not only capture physiology and bring that benefit to bear, but also listen to what people want, respond to that, and give them the features immediately. As soon as they ask for them, we work on them and release them. So that sort of turnaround of listening to consumers and iterating rapidly, which is so common in web companies, is, in my mind, one of the things that's making wearable technology really successful now.
Bernard, one question I have on the wearables category is that it kind of goes against the grain of recent history. If you think about gadgets, like why were smartphones so successful? Well, you actually took 3 devices, a digital camera, an MP3 player, and a cell phone, and put them into one device. I mean, PDA too. We were carrying around like 4 or 5 gadgets replaced by one. So the smartphones were expensive, but they weren't actually that much more expensive than all the gadgets they replaced. With wearables, we're asking people to lay out more money, and based on my personal experience, my reporting, an unclear benefit today. What's going to make people go out and buy? Now, Marco, what you're hearing is that you're selling. What I'm hearing from you is that you're selling as many as you can make.
Well, I think for us, the important thing about what you just said is that there needs to be additional value beyond what you already have. So I think as we look at wearable technology, what's clear to us is what you're wearing has to provide something that the smartphone doesn't already provide. Convenience is interesting, but features is what users are really purchasing. So one of the reasons we built a heartbeat sensor into our device is because that's something that the smartphone can never do. It just lives in your pocket and on your bedside table. It's not tracking your heartbeats while you're up on stage or having lunch or sleeping. And that insight into your physiology is really something that can add a lot of value and really make achieving those health goals a lot easier, but you're never going to get those from a smartphone. So for me, the purchase motivation is really about getting those features that you're never going to get in a smartphone, and the convenience that happens when you have something on the wrist with a screen and you can see your heart rate and your calories and your steps right there.
And Sonny, you've gone with a completely different form factor. There's no display on the Shine, is that correct?
There is a display, 12 dots, and it tells you how well you're doing, and the display actually doubles as a watch. So dual function display there. I mean, there are other activity monitors out there that don't have displays, but no. And
I mean, is that the goal, or should we be trying to replace the watch or substitute for it?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Is that how you kind of substitute for something that consumers are already wearing and buying?
Yeah. So we were originally just going to make this clip originally we were actually just going to make a button, and we thought it was too big for buttons, so we shelved it. And so we worked on another product that we got venture capital money on, and that's pretty exciting. We'll be launching that hopefully next year. But then we saw this space just take off, literally hundreds of thousands of these units sold by other companies, each company hundreds of thousands of units a month. I said, okay, surely we could do, so we're somewhat opportunistic about that. But we just felt like, wow, a lot of these products don't look really wearable. They're plastic and rubber. And most of the thing that people wear, or at least part of the wearing vocabulary, is cotton or cashmere or leather or precious stones, precious metals. So we wanted to make something in that space. And so we started with metal, with the material, the size, the wearability, the fact that you could wear it as a clip, as well as on your wrist. And as a necklace, etc., and just go from there. See what people would wear first, and then let's put technology into it. And this is no joke. We almost didn't put a sensor in it. It was almost going to just have lights, and that was it. Illuminated jewelry that would remind you to be more active. Fortunately, we were able to put a sensor in there, and we were able to get it to communicate with the iPhone. So it does do that. But our philosophy has always been, let's start with what people wear now, and let's see what we can do with that. And that way we don't have to change any habits, unless there were like amazing sensors and technology that you can bring to bear, then okay, okay, I would wear that, because, it's going to get me insights that I'm just not going to get.
I think one of the things I'd love to touch on if we have time is Casper invested in both of these companies, so clearly there's a lot of opportunity out there, and there's different approaches that make sense for different people. And as Reg said at the start of the day, this is a part of the world that's only just starting to evolve. We're really figuring out where the value is, which parts of wearable technology are really compelling for people. So I think it says a lot that there are investors who are making plays in multiple companies in this area. I think it also says that there's a bright future for companies like Basis and Misfit, in terms of finding out where the real value is for the people they're targeting, and then making an experience that's on top of what we can already get with the amazing technology in our pockets. But
yeah, I mean, Casper, the good news for venture capitalists is that hardware companies need capital.
Sure.
The bad news is they need capital.
I think that's going to change.
It's certainly a different risk profile than,
I was going to say something about the cell phones. I think what you're dealing with there is this idea that instant gratification of something that is useful to me right then and there, whether it's email, taking a photograph, whatever. And I think health is a fundamentally different, I was talking a little bit earlier about the fact there's just so much noise when you say here, we're just a sack of water. I have a WeThink scale, and on any given day, my weight is 162 or 168 pounds. What do I do with that in the moment, right? And I think we've all talked about the fact amongst ourselves here that what you really need to get context on your health is data over time. I think it's extremely important. And so I think our investment hypothesis even changed with Basis. When we first invested, we thought this is just this is a great heart rate monitor that's going to compete with Polar or any one of the straps. It's going to be more convenient. And what's happened over the last year and a half, I think, is, for me certainly, and also the company, I think, is recognizing that consumers, it's what you do, it's monitoring the other 23 and a half hours of your day as opposed to just doing your exercise. So, the smartphone's great if I want to go run and I push start, and then at the end of my run I push stop. And then, I write down how many times how far I've exercised for the week, or I've got a log of that. But it's really not giving me any insight on my health. And again, the experience just that I've had is I now want all the data, and I want to have it over a period of time so I can see what was I doing this summer, what did things look like when I'm back at work again, with kids going back to school. And I think the dynamic there is extremely important. And then Sonny's doing something completely different, which is, hey, make it, the other tension I think is friction, I have to have enough value in what I'm doing to overcome the friction or the activation energy of wearing this thing. And what Sonny's done, which has been his mantra from day one, is it has to be so great that I'm going to turn around for it, or it has to be so seamless I don't even know it's there. And I think that's also a great way to look at this market.
And yet you don't want it to disappear so completely that you forget about it or don't interact with it. I mean, it's
right.
It's a question of finding that balance. For example, I found with this device, it's a very simple step/heart rate tracker. I've kind of stopped paying attention to it after a few weeks. Part of that is I've experimented with another way to measure my heart rate. It's actually a heart rate strap that gives me real-time monitoring. So I can see, if I'm spiking my heart rate during exercise, which, trainers recommend for, getting maximum benefit. And so, if I'm kind of forgetting about this device, I'm wearing it, I'm gathering data, but I'm not really using it, I might swap it out. Is that the risk that it's forgettable?
I'll just 2 seconds on this, because I was an athlete in college. I still run a lot. I bought a heart rate monitor 15 years ago. I wore it for 2 months, and then I was like, when I'm running up this hill and I'm running hard, my heart rate's around 160. And
right, you kind of learn it.
You kind of learn it. You're like, okay, I'm not wearing the heart rate monitor anymore. And so I do think that's a very limited kind of engagement where you have a very specific objective. What I'm finding with kind of the wearable, the increasingly wearable products is you are collecting data in background, and then it's incredibly helpful to see things in context when you go back in time. So that would be my answer to that.
Yeah, I think with what we're noticing with continuous monitoring, and part of our philosophy was not having to wear a chest strap or multiple devices to actually get to that. It's the times when you wouldn't have ordinarily checked those pieces of data that are most interesting. So, someone made a comment at lunch and that made me sort of sit up, and I can check my heart rate and see, what impact that had on my physiology. I would have never have thought to have checked that. And times when you're also not able to, like during sleep, I can see what the impact of a few extra drink is on my physiology that night. I can see what a big night does to my body. I can see how the sleep in an aeroplane is different to the sleep in my bed. I know that my resting heart rate is going to be 15 or 20 beats higher than it normally is because my body just is not going to rest as much. But you need a device that tracks that automatically and knows when you're asleep and measures that. And part of the approach that's been really successful for us is we studied behavioral psychology very closely to see how to motivate people. And we developed a system called Healthy Habits, which is really about dynamically adjusting goals that sort of understand where you are and then set a goal that's just a little ahead. And then as you improve, the goals keep staying a little bit ahead of you, so you continue growing. We all have a bad week, so if you have a bad week, it can sort of ratchet down and pick you up again. But that dynamic adjustment is really important. I mean, some people are never going to wear a chest strap and another device. And you're wonderful, but you're a minority.
I take it to an extreme in the service of journalism.
So I think part of the importance here is actually being flexible for different people. I mean, when it's as simple as a clip, whether it's something that's, anyone can monitor their physiology continuously, the important thing is that anybody can pick up that system. And part of what we did with Habits is making sure that whether you're a more athletic person or a more sedentary person, the system can actually recognize that and pick you up where you are, set goals that are appropriate, and adjust with you over time. Because the reality is, health oscillates. You get healthier, you get less healthy, and the system needs to be able to adjust with you to continue pushing you up that hill. Otherwise, it doesn't feel like it's really looking after you. It feels like it's setting goals for someone else that you sort of have to force yourself into. And that can be demotivating. So a system that can really understand you is key.
Right. I think an earlier speaker called it reactance. If you have this robotic system telling you what to do, you pretty soon you start resisting it and just saying, no, I'm not going to do that. So what's the goal here? Who are these devices really going to help? I mean, we've talked a lot about kind of that athletic context. Is it the non-athletes who we really should be serving?
Absolutely. So we love quantified self. We love elite athletes. Great. There's just not that many of them. Most of the world is not an elite athlete or even competitive athletes. Most of the world, like over 99%, are not quantified selfers. They're just not. I always bring up Oklahoma City because that's where I'm from, so I can poke fun at it. But people in Oklahoma City, that this is, Many of them haven't heard of some of the leading brands in this space. You know, they haven't heard about these types of products, and they're like, well, why should I even wear an activity tracker? You know, and so let's win them over at another level. Like one is let's try to find some value that we can deliver through this kind of information for sure. Like we have to do that. That's part of the job. But the other part of it is let's make something that people would wear even if it didn't do anything. That's been our internal goal. Is let's design stuff that you would wear even if it didn't, if the batteries were dead, you know, or if it had no function. You know, so we tried that with China. We're not quite there, but we got pretty close. Around, you know, when we've shown this to people, it's mostly women actually, about 10% said they just wear it. And then we tap on it, lights turn on. Oh my gosh. About 20% of people said they would actually wear it without knowing what it is. And then when we presented another product, one of the other clip-on pedometers, we said, would you wear this? And the first question has always been, well, what is that? Why should I wear it? Will it show? And so we're trying to, I mean, yeah, we love the fitness tracking space. It's great. Hopefully we can get people to lose weight, etc. But what we'd love to solve are some of the deep problems with wearable technology. I mean, and I think one of the first one is wearability. And I think there's several ways to solve it. Just great wearability design. And it's not just about making things wearable, as the term implies. You know, like, yeah, you can wear it, but would you want to wear it? So, but the other part of it is battery life. So for us, you know, we are maniacal about power management. And, you know, we've gotten this to 4 to 6 months of battery life, no charging ever. And part of it is, I think that's one of the barriers to usage. Again, unless you have extraordinary function, you know. And then the other thing for us is just really useful and accurate information. I think between those three things, I think you can win people over. And I think it's, you know, and to the extent that you can wear it in multiple positions, because not everybody wants to wear, like, you know, especially with the female segments that women that we've spoken to, there's a huge segment just won't wear any watches or anything because they don't want to have tan lines. No tan lines, you know. How can you compete on that, you know? And then a number of them, you know, wear beautiful watches, and they're just not even, ours is pretty nice looking, but they're just not going to even wear ours, you know, because they've got a Chopard watch, which is gorgeous. It might not even work, and they're wearing it because it's a statement. And so how do you compete against that? You know, so there are these segments out there that are very tough. Anyways, but like with ours, you know, we want it to be worn anywhere so that you can wear it on your wrist, or if you're cycling, since your wrist doesn't really move much when you're cycling, you can clip it onto your shoe or pants, and that way you can get credit, because any wrist-worn activity monitor is going to have a hard time getting credit when you're stationary cycling, for example. So
this may be an extreme outlier use case, but apparently fitness trackers are terrible at measuring treadmill desks. And I realized the problem is I'm putting, you know, I use an app called Human, which actually uses my phone to detect motion. Except if you put your phone on a treadmill desk, Human can't detect that you're moving. It's a problem. It may be a very first world problem, but all of these devices kind of, you know, they attempt to capture context, and that may be an extreme example, but they're attempting to capture context, but right now the Shine doesn't know if it's on a lapel or a wrist or a
does actually correct for position. So like if you wear another wrist-worn activity monitor and ours is within about 2%, will be within about 2% of them. If you clip ours to the hip and you wear a hip-worn activity monitor, one of the other ones out there, we're within also 2 or 3%. So we actually can correct for some position. Our thesis, though, is not, yeah, we want to get as much accuracy as possible, so we have these position-dependent submodels, et cetera, okay? But at the end of the day, it's kind of like what Casper was saying. If we can get people to wear it for a long time, because you don't have to charge, it's really easy to use, you just tap it and the lights turn on, that's it, you know? Then you have the hope of getting more continuous data. Mm-hmm. And if, like, you know, if you can get continuous data, that's really interesting, you know? Then you can see trends over time and learn about yourself, see how you're doing week to week. Are you getting better? And just for any given day, how am I doing for the day? You know, for me, you know, I'm tapping here, I'm about halfway done with my activity goal, okay? Because half my dot's lit up. So that's it.
And Casper, have you seen anyone doing a really good job with this these trends over time, like doing something with the data?
Yeah, I think you're bringing up a really hard, I think I've spent a lot of time in obesity and diabetes, and it's like smoking cessation. It's incredibly hard to change habits. And there was somebody I was at a talk a couple weeks ago, somebody was talking about the fact that 95% of what we do is habit. Only 5% is real consciousness, right? A great athlete isn't somebody who goes, I'm going to get up and work out because I feel like working out. Like, that's just a habit. I'm going to go do this, and I get up, and that's my thing. So it's extremely hard, and I would say half the population is not in that mentality for any given thing, whether it be health or whether it's, whatever it is you want. I'm not going to be great I'm never going to be a great artist. And I think health is very similarly a subjective, qualitative thing. So I think, where we have started as quantified selfers, what we have to get to very quickly, and I think it's going to happen very quickly, is getting context and providing useful insight to people. It's not going to take long. It's already happening, where the data from these devices will be context dependent. I'm going to be linked to my, where was I GPS location when this event happened? What was my heart rate like at work? What was it like at home? And I think those things will surreptitiously begin to impact if they're invisible and frictionless. I had the same experience. I don't know if you all tried a Zeo, the sleep band, unfortunately, that went bankrupt. I just pulled it out of the closet, a couple of weeks ago, and I was like, I really hate wearing this thing. I really detest it because it bothers me. And at the same time, all I've used, one of the main uses I've used with the basis over the last 5-6 months has been tracking my sleep. How long did I sleep? How well did I sleep? And I love going back to them and going, gosh, this summer I was sleeping 8 hours a week, and now I'm sleeping 5 hours a week. That's significant.
And that personalization is sort of what I was touching on earlier. For me, one of the earliest wins I had with the basis band was actually realizing that I was a really inactive person. And now I walk to the office every morning. I live just across town, and I have a 45-minute walk to work. And now I get up in the morning, I shower, I put my clothes on, I get out the door, and before I've even consciously processed it, I'm walking to the office. You're right, it's actually not a conscious decision, it's a habit. And it's because I had this realization about my life. Even though I considered myself an active person, I was really just going to the gym, working out a couple of times a week. I didn't have regularity in that. Yep. And so now I have a regular exercise schedule which really just fits in with my lifestyle because I made it a habit. So for you, sleep has been really important. Maybe you'll integrate activity into that as well. Part of that is a system that can adapt to the different focuses you have, because some people start on sleep and then they want to become more active, and probably going the other direction. I wanted to get more active, and now I'm kind of worrying that my sleep isn't allowing me to do that. So that dynamic adjustment is really important.
Yeah. So some of the medical research I've read suggests that the identity of a person who's exercising or trying to watch their nutrition is really important. That if you identify as a runner, you're more likely to run because you feel like that's just part of your makeup. So maybe what all these devices really help us do is adjust our sense of self, or kind of check our self-perception. Like you're viewing yourself as a quote-unquote active person. Well, does that actually stand up to the test when you measure your activity? So is that does it let us be a little more rigorous in our self-evaluation? Is that the benefit?
Yeah, so I can tell you about how I got to that, just as a personal anecdote. And because our system sets these goals, you really have an opportunity to win every day. So if you achieve your habit for the day, the system responds to that. It'll give you a push notification on your phone. It'll light up green. It'll give you points. And giving yourself an opportunity to celebrate gets you towards that realization, that identification. So as I was actually becoming more active, the system was telling me that and rewarding me for that, and it builds in that psyche of like, I'm actually achieving something, I'm winning, and that in the context of health is unusual, because health is such a long-term journey in most cases. And part of the success, I think, that we're seeing in wearable technology, and we're certainly seeing at Basis, is tying together short-term victories with long-term achievements in health. Because Rock Health published a statistic that 80% of health app users abandon those apps within 2 weeks. And the reality is that you simply don't change your health permanently in 2 weeks. Nothing gets done. with our system, things take weeks to achieve. You start out with one goal, you have to achieve that a little bit, you can get a second goal. It takes some time to get through the system and actually build up that success. And that's the reality of health, is you have to stay on the system for a period of time to achieve that. Part of that means that we're seeing people stay on our system for a long period of time because they actually get those wins over time. But part of it's also that we can really impact true health, like not just increasing your step count, but actually like internal physiology improving over time. And that's when you start to get into the realm of people achieving this dream, which is empowering them with their own health, which is something that I think wearable technology can uniquely do.
Sonny, Casper, any thoughts?
I was going to say, I just think that we all know about gamification. We all know about tweeting and sort of social context. I think those are incredibly powerful tools. I mean, those are sort of obvious ones, but just compare that to the current healthcare system with obesity. If you're going to get a gastric bypass surgery, you're going to spend 2 months with a therapist talking about why you want to lose weight, really truly have the motivation to change your habits, and that's including then subsequently following it up with radical surgery on your stomach. Because it's been demonstrated that if you don't do that, those patients will continue to gain weight, amazingly. So I think certainly what I've noticed about myself, and I think this is fairly common, is by measuring these things, you can start to gamify, you can start to develop habits. So it's sort of this, first it's the awareness, and then you get into actually caring about it, and then thirdly, doing something about it. And everybody has their journey of self-discovery, and you either start with, I think that's one way to get there. The alternative is to go heavy-handed with, I'm going to have a religious conversion, or I'm going to, see a therapist. And I think this is actually a really interesting way of democratizing change for health.
Right on. And I think we're almost out of time. So, Sonny, any last thoughts on the deeper meaning of this all?
Yeah. Well, my typical one-liner is that this world of wearables is super, so I went to University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign, and where, Netscape came from and PayPal, and I totally missed the internet revolution. And then I was using Palm Pilots and whatnot and missed the mobile revolution. I was like, okay, this is ridiculous. I'm not missing the, so I do actually believe this wearable stuff is gonna happen. This is why we went and started this company, left my last job to do it. But I feel like it's really it's still quite early. People say, oh, activity monitoring is such a saturated market. There's only 30 competitors right now, okay? So what's the big deal, And there's only a few that are really amazing, right?
There were about 30 web browser companies in 1995.
Yeah, right. And then how many are there now, right? The question is, so I don't know if that number is indicative of the stage that the industry and the movement is at or not. It could be. But the other part of it is there's still such massive problems in this wearable space that are it just feels like it's going to take a while to solve. Battery power, energy density is such a non-Moore's law-like type of thing. I mean, a 2032 battery maybe 10 years ago, had 180 milliamp hours, now it's got 220. And then maybe in 10 years it'll have 280. I don't know. Who knows? I mean, it'd be awesome if there were some incredible advances there. But you don't see that. So energy, wearability, being able to make things really that you would just wear, that you would go back home for, or that you would wear and you feel good about wearing, and just for what it is. And if it has a secondary function. That's the other thing, is if we can make wearable devices where there's a secondary function where you just wear it, even if the battery's dead because it had this other thing, how cool would that be? And so I think these problems of wearability are still very deep in this space and need to be resolved. And before we get to wearable fitness stuff, or wearable payments, wearable identity, wearable controls, wearable safety and defense systems, I mean, there's a lot of stuff you can do other than just measure yourself, right, in a wearable context. But before we get there, the cool thing is we have kind of this beachhead in the fitness space. But before we can get to more of this beachhead and other areas, I think it's about solving these very fundamental problems in wearability. And we're working on it.
Right on. All right, thank you very much, Casper, Sonny, Marco.
Thank you.